Continuing to learn Mareh Yaakov. As we're starting a little bit late and some people have to leave early, I think we'll dispense with doing something from the Parshat and we'll just dive right into the Sefer. We are learning Parshat Noach. We're on page 38 in the Noach section, Breshit Zion, it's the 7th chapter of Breshit, sentence 19, Yud Tet. So we had started to talk about the flood and about how the preparations became hurried and yet orderly, and as the water continued to rise and the ark was left solitary, all of those concerns vanished together with the flood. So we get to V'hamayim, and the waters. This word has a revi'i. So we'll remember that a revi'i is a note that makes that word stand alone all by itself. So even before we look, what can we imagine is going to happen with v'hamayim with a revi'i? We realize that this is really the only reality now. The world is all gone. The only reality is the water and the ark. V'hamayim, the flood water covered a vast area.
And it looked like the ravine looked like the little ark on top of the word Mayim looked like all the water.
That's cute. Mm-hmm.
Bobbing on it.
The flood water covered a vast area, and the waters kept on increasing steadily, as indicated by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So why do we feel that there is a question of increasing steadily? Again, the revi'i should be something that stands alone. So it should be in the merit just of that word itself. So the question is, why do we need the and? Why do we need the v? Why do we need the and? And the and would certainly point to it becoming something in and of itself, and something that is increasing. When we have to say and, it's something together with something else. So that's where I think the thought of increasing is coming from.
But the pasuk before was increasing also. These were what's the chiddush in this pasuk?
The question, the chiddush is, why does he say that it keeps on increasing steadily?
You mean in which pasuk? The one we're on now?
The one we're on now.
But the one before also said increasing.
As indicated by the broad meaning of the reading mark.
So the question is, where do we get that concept of it increasing steadily from just v'hamayim with a revi'i? So the first thing is, we know that a revi'i is going to make that word stand alone. So it can't be in reference to what's before or what's after necessarily. So we have an and. Because we have an and, because we have a connection, it's going to connect itself to the fact that the water is something that's increasing.
Could it also have reference to the shape of the revi'i, which is a diamond, which means that it's growing tall and it's growing broad?
Is it a diamond?
It is, but
not just a dot.
It's not just a dot. It's a diamond shape. The question is that ever expressed anywhere else where we see a revi'i? And to the best of my knowledge, it hasn't been anything that we've referred to yet. But we'll keep it in mind the next time we come to a revi'i, because we're coming to one in the second half of the pasuk. Gavru, strengthened, with the tivir. The tivir has the mecha on the outside and the dot on the inside, so we see that this is something that's going to have the concept of something being sheltered. Gavru, strengthened. The level of the waters kept rising, and it strengthened the magnitude of the flood due to the abundant sources, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So here we need to again remind ourselves that the flood is coming both from above and from below. It's both water falling down from rain and water coming up from springs and wells. So the idea of coming from above and from below is perhaps what we're seeing with the tivir.
May I ask, what happened to the fish in the flood?
That's why
there is
negative ayin hara, because
there is no commandment for Noah to save or gather the fish.
So they
And
die if you can't get
we had fish before and we had fish after. So we have to infer that the fish survived. So the question becomes why the fish survived, and the sin that we attribute to the animals is that they were mixing species. So we infer, and I believe the Midrash infers directly as well, that the fish did not mix species, and therefore they were spared the flood. And we'll learn that the water in and of itself was not a safe place, even for the fish. So we're going to go into.
Boiling? Why would the water be boiling?
Yeah, we're going to get there.
What comes up from the earth would be boiling.
Exactly.
Underground volcanoes.
So then why is it a symbol of if they did die?
So we know that they did not, because there were fish. We know that there were fish before. There are fish in Maaseh Bereshit, and there are fish after. And Noah has no commandment to save fish. So therefore the fish had to have survived.
As gefilte fish, but they survive.
Wait a minute, but there's all the animals. They replenished from the ones.
There were no fish on the ark.
Right.
So if all the fish died, then all the fish died.
Right.
So again, the concept is that things that we can logically derive that don't have another significance, the Torah doesn't tell us. So if we can logically derive from the fact that the story of Bereshit tells us that there are fish, and afterwards there's fish for us that we can eat, and no fish were brought on the ark, therefore the fish survived the flood. And certainly, Midrash has to come and tell us how and why, but if we can infer it logically, and there's no extra significance to that, then it won't be something that's mentioned.
But you see why they're a sign of what did I say? Like Neged Ayin Hara, because they survived, so they're a good luck charm. The Chamsas, people wear fish around them.
That's not why they wear the fish.
Why do they wear the
On
fish?
a chain?
Yeah.
And that's
Fertility.
You're thinking of the fishers of men in Christianity?
Well,
That
I don't know what they were, but
came later.
I mean, it comes from Judaism that fish are a sign of fertility as well. So
Yeah.
we have when we bless the children, we say v'yidgu la'rov. They should multiply like fish. So it's something that comes from a sentence. It's not something that Christianity came up with. It's something that we had before.
Against the evil eye comes from that they were saved from the flood.
Thank you.
We'll continue. Number 3, me'od, the first word very, with a mercha. So this is something that gently brings what has come before, but mostly focuses in on what's going to come afterwards. Since very large amounts of cold water kept pouring from above, no warm-blooded animated life could withstand it, as stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the question is, how do we know that the first me'od is referring to the rain? Well, it's looking backwards. It's a mercha, so it's got that little idea of including what's come from before, and we're talking about the flood coming from above. We started with rain. So we've got 2 me'ods, and the question is which one refers to the water coming from above and which one refers to the water coming from below. So the first one has to refer to, at least gently refer to, what we've already mentioned. So that's how we get the idea of the first me'od, talking about water, cold water coming from above. Number 4, again, me'od, this time with a tipcha, so this folds in the concept of what we had before it. Besides the cold water of the upper zones, the very hot water from deep springs added to the combined lethal effects of the flood, because whatever survived the cold was cooked by the heat, as shown by the closing shape of the directional reading mark, and by the double me'od depth. So the question is, why is he equating the word ma'od, and death. Other than that's the context that we're dealing with here. And I will have to say that I don't get the reference. I don't know where he's referring to.
Well, maybe that it wasn't, one of them wasn't enough to kill them, but both of them together, if one didn't kill them, the other would.
Because I was saying,
And
whatever,
the double ma'od.
Yes, but
whatever survived, some things might have.
They might survive the cold, but they would have survived the rains, but not necessarily the building one is from the...
90. I don't see a gematria here. I don't see.
Is there another place where ma'od appears in
The stress on the
Torah?
Yes, and I will keep it in the back of my head, and I'll hopefully give you an answer by the end of the class.
Screen open?
So certainly Adam, the same three letters of Mem Aleph Daled appear in the word for Adam, and
all Adam died.
And Adam, red. Adama, earth. So, and when Adam dies, he goes back to Adama. So that might be the reference, is Adam and Adama, man going back to the earth as his final resting place. And those are the same three letters as Me'od. We continue on. Al haaretz with an et nachta. Et nachta is a stabilizing note in the middle of the sentence. Al haaretz, over the land. Huge amounts of water simultaneously poured over the land from above and below, contributing to the identical effect as suggested by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So the same effect that the water from above that's cold is going to have in extinguishing life, the hot water from below is also going to have that effect, and it's going to distribute itself with equal effect. Vayechusu, and they were covered, again with the Revi'i. So the Revi'i again makes the word stand alone and emphasizes the word. In addition, there was a third important factor which contributed to the magnitude of the flood by the melted snow and ice, and they were covered, large mountain areas, as expressed by the broad meaning of the reading mark. So the question is, we don't mention anywhere else melted ice, melted snow from the tops of the mountains. Here we're saying because Vayechusu, and they were covered, is made to stand alone. Therefore, we're saying we have another source of water. We have something else that's a standalone source of the punishment that's coming. We have the water from above with the first ma'od, the water from below with the second ma'od, and Vayechusu, the coverings that were on the mountains, the water from the snow and the ice that were there, are forming a third independent source, and that's why it's a Revi'i. That's why it's something that's standing again by itself. And I don't see a significance to a diamond shape here, but I will continue to think.
Well, a diamond is over the top of the mountain.
The first half,
diamond
yes.
logo.
What about the bottom half? What about the bottom half?
No,
The black diamond run.
It's not an iceberg.
No, maybe it is an iceberg from icebergs too.
Iceberg all the way to
Kol heharim, all the mountains, with a pashta. Pashta emphasizes the word slightly and looks forward. All the mountains of the vicinity became naked and deprived of the eternal ice and snow, as specified by the directional shape of the reading mark.
You're on the wrong page. Look everything.
I know, but I'm showing him the pasuk.
Yeah, she's showing him the notes. So the mountain standing by itself is what's being emphasized by the fact of pashtav, pashut. It's just there simply the mountain itself, no longer with a covering. Hagevohim, the tallest ones, and again this comes with a katon. Katon is the two dots that are on top of the second hay. So we always interpret this as having two aspects that are being talked about with this word, and possibly one elevated and one not. Instead of being covered, we're number 8. Instead of being covered by ice or snow, the tallest ones were submerged underwater as a result of the massive flood, as illustrated by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So you have the mountain and the water above it. So those are the two parts that we're talking about. Even the tallest ones are now submerged. And again, you have the water above and the mountain below, a two-part note. Asher tachat, that beneath, with the tipcha. Tipcha is going to fold in the concept of whatever was before it, and has a slight pause after it. That beneath, number 9. Even the peaks of the mountains, where clouds that beneath them never obstructed the sunshine, also became covered by the water of the flood, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the tachat has to go back and talk about Givohim. It has to talk about the tallest of the mountains. And another feature of the tallest of the mountains is that they would occasionally be cloud covered, and even those ended up being submerged.
The clouds were underwater too, right?
The clouds wouldn't fit underwater.
But
they were so tall that they were taller than the clouds. The clouds would sit below the peaks, but even those where you think that rain comes from clouds,
Right.
and so those exposed peaks should remain exposed. So Jeff is saying those two were
Right, so that means the clouds underwater already.
Well, the cloud is water vapor, so it would
Anyway,
end up
so
being
the-
part of the water. It's not.
Further
The question is, why do we even need to mention this? We need to mention this because not only the things that were normally visible disappear, but even those things that were inferred or invisible to the human eye from before also got consumed by the flood. Kol hashamayim, with a sof pasuk. And again, this is a stabilizing note at the end of the sentence. Those peaks did not influence the extent of the flood because they were steep, bare, and faced the blue of all the heavens at any time of the day. The top part of the mountains that were above the clouds were something that people from below couldn't see and would always have had sunshine on them before. And yet, so that's the reference that Kol Hashemayim, the heavens, and yet they became part of the new stability, which is the flood. So even that part that had sunshine permanently before because it was above the clouds also disappears in the flood. And we'll read the pasuk. Vehamayim gavru meod meod al haaretz vayechusu kol haharim hagvohim asher tachat kol hashamayim. We're going to continue with the next sentence. Pasuk Kaf, number 720. We're on page 39 at the bottom of the column there. Chamesh, 5, and with a pashta. Pashta emphasizes the word slightly and looks forward to what's going to come after it. In the continuous abundance of water, even the highest summits of mountains became covered, initially by a level of about 5 measuring units above the mountains, as indicated by the directional shape of the reading mark. So the pashta is going to emphasize that. So we're inferring something new here that, again, other commentators don't talk about. We're talking about 5, Well, 5 is standing alone. It's not Chamesh Esrei. Because each word is inferring a paragraph in and of itself, the 5 has to stand by itself. So we're saying, first of all, they became covered 5 amot deep, 5 cubits deep. And that's looking forward to, and that's why we have the little and in the bracket in the English translation, 5 and, because Chamesh the Pashta does look forward to the next word. Esrei, with a mahapach. A mahapach, we'll remember, concentrates the idea that's come before and focuses it to move forward. Later, the flood increased by an additional 10 standard units, amounting to a total of 15, as denoted by the shape of the reading mark. So we've got the 5 first, and then we're folding in another 10 to get the final effect. So that's why we're using a mahapach here. We're using a note that folds in the first 5 and adds the second 10.
So no other commentator.
Commentator says that when you see Chamesh Esrei, you always say 15.
Right.
But here we're saying 5, pause, and then another 10. So again, that's a chiddush that we have here. That's a new idea that's being added because of the dimension that this commentary adds. That each word has to stand by itself in the context of its note. Ama, with a pashta, which is going to again emphasize the word and point forward. A measuring unit was expressed by a cubit, as were the sizes of the ark, as stressed by the directional shape of the reading mark. So we're saying that the cubit becomes something that's significant, and that's why it stands emphasized with the pashta, and we're using the same unit to describe the condition of the world, the condition of the flood, as we use to describe the construction of the ark. We have a note, Ama, a cubit, was considered a stretch of arm length comparable to 2 feet, from here to there.
From here. What did you say?
Ama?
No, this is from this cubit. It's
From
from
here to here?
fingertip
Yes,
to
that's
here.
right.
Unless it's Batya. Remember that one?
They were a lot shorter than.
I know, but when Pharaoh's
to
daughter
grab-
goes
to
to
grab Moses.
That's it.
Number 4, from above, milmala, with a
It's so interesting
katon.
because there's another parish to that Batya that she sent her handmaiden. Handmaiden. It's also Amma. Maybe that's where it comes from. Why is it called handmaiden? But Amma is a hand, a handbreadth, a handmaiden. It's Amma and Amma.
Spelled the same, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So she would be an extension of your arm.
Right, you're right. Yeah.
So absolutely.
That's what happened.
Mm-hmm. Milmala, katon. So katon is the 2-part note, the 2 dots that are on top of the second mem, from above. On the entire horizon, nothing had protruded to be from above the even surface of the water, as pointed out by the bipartite shape of the reading mark. So again, we have the water and nothing else that's above it. So
Look at the ark. Floating on.
So the question is, are we referring to the ark floating on top of the lower water, or are we talking about lower water and upper water with the ark in between, or are we talking about nothing else from the previous world being able to be seen above the level of the water now? We really haven't mentioned the ark in the last 2 psukim, and I think we're really referring to the flood and everything but the ark, rather than referring to the ark here, because the last sentence and this sentence really are, as I said, referring to everything else that was on the world, and we have the flood waters and nothing else being able to peak above.
So why the katon?
So the katon, because the water and nothing else above. Milmala, on top, there's nothing.
With a new horizon
So why
in
is it
between.
2 dots?
because you've got the water below, and nothing else from the previous world surviving above.
So there's nothing else but the other dog?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing and water.
Gavru with the tipcha. Tipcha folds in the concept of what's come from before and has a slight pause after it. Number 5. The flood had strengthened, and no limit was in sight for its extent or for comparisons, as shown by the shape of the reading mark. So we're going to fold in the concept of milmala, of going above with nothing else below, and the question is this something that would go on in an unlimited fashion? Because it seems to continue to strengthen and to strengthen, to go over five amot and then another 10 amot, and the question is, when is it going to stop? We don't see a tendency for that. So we have to realize if we say that we've created a concept or a flow in nature, then it's going to continue until there's an opposing force. So there's no reason for something that's strengthening to stop strengthening. So we think, okay, it rains and then it stops. Here it rained, and then it rained more, and then it rained more. Well, the next part in that series is, and then it rained even more. It's not, and then it stopped. So Gavru is folding in the 5, and then 10 more, and it's going to keep on going.
Is it though? But then it would say more than Chamesh Esrei.
Well, but that's what we're saying with Gavru, is that it's going to continue to strengthen. It has the appearance of continuing to strengthen.
With no
that's why it's got the tipcha. It's folding in everything that's come from before.
Perhaps you can also suggest that in a normal situation of rain, the water drains from highland to lowland, ultimately reaches the sea, like Melch Formosa. But if the sea itself is covered, all the dry, where's it going to drain to? Everything's water. Where's it going to go down to? Mm-hmm. So that perhaps can suggest why no end in sight, because there's nowhere for it to drain to.
Agreed. Hamayim, the waters, with the stabilizing et nachta. Et nachta puts us in the middle of the sentence and gives the concept of stability. Number 6, the waters appeared homogeneous on a constant level in all directions, as suggested by the stabilizing shape of the reading mark. So water in and of itself reaches a level, seeks its level, and would be the defining stable point of this world now. The note tipcha with Gavru has a small implied pause after it. Whenever you see a word with a tipcha after it, it can grammatically change. It can grammatically not change the word after it because it's got that tiny little pause after you pronounce it. So we're also seeing that this concept of Gavru, of strengthening and strengthening seemingly to keep on going, is now going to stop and be stabilized with the et nachta that's under Hamayim. So that pause after the tipcha, even though he doesn't mention it, is significant in the context of coming to an et nachta after it. Vayechusu. So we've got Hamayim, and now we're saying that that's the point of stability. The level of the water is now our new point of stability. Not that it's going to necessarily keep on going up and up. So we're saying it's gone up and it's gone up, and it seems to be strengthening and it's going to go up.
But now
pause. No, that's it. We got the water.
Because of the adapta, you're saying.
Because of the pause after the tipcha, and because of the stabilizing of the et nachta. Both together. Right? So we're building up to a crescendo, and then we calm down. Vayechusu.
Stabilize, not cut. Oh, yeah, okay.
Agreed. Stabilize.
It's going to go down, right?
Vayechusu tipcha. So this is going to fold in whatever has come from before. All the emanations that could serve as a sign to assess the situation disappeared and were covered by an even surface of the flood, as referred backwards by the directional shape of the reading mark. The concept of covering is telling us that all the things that existed before are no longer there. So we're going back and we're saying all of those things that were there before are really now all just hamayim. They're just the water that we've referred back to. And number 8, the sof pasuk, and again we reach a stable point here. Haharim, the mountains. We turn the page.